now when you have decided to get into franchisee of a company, let's understand what are the important parameters or what are the points you have to really look in to decide a right franchisee of a right product. First and foremost, the most important thing is interest. The product or the service which you're going in for, it's very important that you should be interested in it. For example, if you are somebody who loves fashion and glamour, the kind of business what you should go in is more of fashion related or accessory related. If you are somebody who's a food lover, who likes cooking, food and beverages must be the segment which you should actually go in for, because it's always said that the product what you love and you should love what you're doing, and for your business to be successful you should love the product and the business line. Second most important thing is scope. Today if you're planning to start any kind of a business, you always need to understand what is the kind of scope it has. Scope in terms of business on a longer level, scope in terms of the product line, what is the target audience, what is the future, what is the kind of business you might expect going ahead, and how longer would be the demand forecasting. Third important thing is what is the kind of support you get from the company in terms of support in terms of functioning of the organization, support in terms of customer handling, support in terms of hiring people, support in terms of procuring fresh designs on a regular interval. So it is all the support comprising what you get from the company. Next important factor is price of the product. Now, why price of the product is important is, see, whatever you're selling, it is really important that it has a mass appeal of customer ready to buy at that price. Today, if a product is priced so high, obviously if the price is very high, it is more like a luxury and it's very limited product line who comes in there. But if it is priced properly in an appropriate way, yes, you have mass people coming in and the kind of sales would also be pretty high. Inventory and the shelf life. Now that is an important factor, because assume that if you are into a product line where the shelf life is very limited, what happens is after 2-3 days it is by default that the product gets spoiled. It might be a product or it might be a food product or whatever, it gets spoiled. So that by default it ends up with your loss, or it ends up in increasing the price of the product line. So that also plays a very important role, that what is the shelf life of the product or service what you're planning. Next important thing is how authentic or genuine is the product. Now whatever service you're dealing with, is it authentic? Are you giving the right product? Because that's very important, because that is what is going to take your business longer. Next is the margins it involves. Now the kind of margins involved in your business, is it a margin which will help you only to survive, or is it a margin which is going to take you a long way for you to grow and for improving your business? Now a lot of people say that they have a margin of 30%, 35% or whatever, but actually when you go to the actual bottom line, that means after all the expenses are in terms of, it's left with hardly 4,000, 5,000 or 10,000 a month. If that is the kind of margin what you make, there's no point getting into any kind of franchising like that. Next important part is the detailed investment analysis. That means what are the franchisee fees it involves, what are the kind of interior costing it involves, what are the rentals, what is your employee costing on it, what are the legal hurdles. Employees play a very vital role. Now a lot of industries are purely dependent on employees, and if the employee is not available, if employee goes off, the whole ecosystem gets spoiled. In terms of replacing it with a new employee becomes a major challenge. Especially this is something which is seen in the food and beverages industry, where even if you're hiring somebody else, the training, the taste, that becomes always a major challenge. So that's a very important factor which you'll always consider, which you always have to consider by deciding the right franchisee. Next important part is what are the kind of risk factors involved while doing the business, which might be legal and normal hurdles like if it's food and beverages, the taste not being proper, people complaining that something is coming with the food and things like that, or if it is a product line, if the product is not of a good quality, and if there is a hurdle based on that, and there are a lot of parameters which you'll have to factor in while considering the right franchisee for you. Next is competitive analysis. Now, competitive analysis is one of the most important factor, and why is that? Is because if there's no competition, or if it is very easy for anybody to start, that means it's better you don't go for a franchisee of that, because if it is very easy for anybody to start, I'm sure there'll be so many people getting into the industry, plus there'll be so many people who will be a competitor brands coming in, and more the competitors, more the similar product line easily available, obviously the chances of your margins will go down automatically. So that is something which you'll have to consider, because if getting into the industry is tougher, obviously your profitability also will be more better. Next is obviously you have to do a thorough background check of the company which you are getting associated with. And the next foremost, the kind of concentration level you can give on to your respective franchisee. That means, are you somebody who can give the whole day, or are you somebody who can just give an hour or two? So based on that, you have to discuss with your respective company and understand that is it something which you can work in an hour or two. And I'm sure every company would have an alternative. So that is very important. And one more thing, that is the sales channel. Now, the kind of sales channel what it has apart from your retail, is there any secondary other sales channels of your product and business line? Like let me say food industry, or today almost 60-65% of the sales are of the food industry is going through Uber Eats or Zomato or Swiggy. So it is highly dependent on them, and their policy structures would obviously affect your sales or your margins. Same way, considering the same way, every industry has its own dependency, whether it's a social media dependency or a third party dependency. So you'll have to also factor in that important factor before deciding the right franchisee. Going ahead, I would obviously talk about silver jewelry and how silver jewelry is very different, and how is our company, that's Flown Basket, answering these questions which we have just raised now for you to decide a right franchisee.